Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
See Avignoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World. Yeah, so suffocating and change. Let's talk about that.
Right. Well, let's just talk about suffocating first. What that is. Oh, I need to turn off all my noises. When we did our warm-up call for this call,
Yes.
we were talking about that feeling of it's like an overwhelm.
Yes.
It's like an overwhelm, uncomfortable, give me space. I feel like I can't connect to things. I can't settle into a groove. And it's not just air suffocation. It's all the familiar sensory suffocation.
Well, and it's feeling, and you put it really well, is feeling like getting stuffed into a box that you don't fit into anymore.
Right.
Good morning, Michael. Good morning, Yasmin. In fact, happy birthday, Yasmin. It's your birthday today, isn't it?
Right.
Happy solar return day. So anyhow, yeah. And it was this notice, like, for me, it was noticing like some of the stuff that was going on was very like comfortable and familiar. Yes, thank you. Very comfortable and familiar. And yet it felt like restricting and suffocating when I felt it on, right? For lack of a better, way of describing it. And I'm like, well, what's that about? Where I'm like, oh, like usually that wouldn't put any kind of pause to me or anything. But then it was like, oh, there's a yawn already. And for me, it was showing up as suffocating. For you, it was something slightly different. What was it? I know it was days ago, right?
3 days ago. To me, it felt like putting on clothing that didn't fit or shoes that didn't fit. It was that irritation and that like, well, I think I like this and I think that this works because I've worn this before, but you put it on and it's like, yeah, it rubs here and it's itchy and it's binding and it's just it wasn't in alignment. It didn't
Yes.
allow me to flow.
Yes.
But I think suffocation is we talk about suffocation's not just lack of oxygen.
Right. It's that constriction.
Right. And that inability to feel comfortable with where you are and what you're allowing to interact with you.
Michael says feeling similar, like I can't catch a sigh of relief.
Yes.
Yes.
How when we always feel like, when you take that energy shift, and then your pets do it and then people around you do it and everybody shifts into that space. And it's like, we haven't quite gotten to where we can shift into the space. And I don't think I just think that we don't belong in this space anymore.
Well, and so we were talking about that, right? And so we're talking about why it feels clunky, because that's really what we came down to, was everything sort of felt clunky, not in a, I mean, like, and I don't want to say not in a bad way, not in a, it's like everything looks the same, but it feels different, right? And so like, but something doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. That's the whole.
Well, and it's like, those optical illusion things where it's like, the plastic plates and one of them is upside down. And once you see it upside down, then the rest all flip and they're all upside down and you can't see it the other way anymore.
Right. And that's sort of where we are.
That's where we are. It's like we've seen this 3D for what it is. And it's just that window dressing and the flatness, and we can't not see it that way anymore. We can't receive the same joy from it, the same sensory input.
Right. Well, and it's funny because it's part of this whole journey of consciousness, but it's like we've accelerated to such a point that, what we were talking about on Friday is we've accelerated to such a point that we're changing so quickly, right?
Yeah. Michael says, I feel like every day I'm waking up in a new timeline.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes it's a couple times a day.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So it's almost like we're changing so quickly inside, and that was a great part of the conversation on Friday is it's like we're changing so on the moment right now, right?
Yep.
And it is in the bigger picture, it is in reflection to the collective. And yet, oh, there's another yawn. Well, let's yawn this morning. And yet the collective it's taking time for how it shows in the collective and around us to show up in that reality externally. Yes. Right. So it's like a delay. It's like, it's like when you're watching a movie and the sound gets off, right? And so you see the lips moving and then you hear the voice and you get out of sync. And that's what like everything feels like right now is everything's gotten a little out of sync.
Right. And we talked about the thing that was kind of like the aha moment for me in all of this was that we talk about, our little personal piece of the collective shifts pretty quickly these days, almost to the point where we can't keep up anymore. Mm-hmm. But it takes a bigger collective to shift the full facade. And so that's what's the time delay is going from that individual to the collective to let everything catch up. And that's where the suffocation comes in, is because we expand quicker than the collective can expand the full consciousness.
Right. And even though it's all simultaneous, it's how we have stuffed it into the time-space continuum, which again, then Michael says about waking up in a new timeline. That's why it feels like we're constantly creating or in different timelines, because it's this constant shift. And it's funny because what kept on hitting me yesterday, like my husband and I went out and we were doing just errands, had to go do plant stuff and whatever. So, but it was like nothing could keep up with me. Like, and I felt so, I was getting irritated because right. It was like, and then at one point something didn't keep up with me. And then I got irritated at that. And then I was like, no, wait a second. Nope. It's got to go both ways too. Right.
Exactly. Yes.
And so I was just sort of realigned myself and it ended up working out even better. So I was like, no, it's fine. So it's like,
the key to that is to make sure that you're realigning. And I hate to use the word right or wrong, but in that expansive sense, not contracting to meet the circumstances.
Right. Well, and that was funny because here's a very 3D kind of situation, right? So we went down to the state farmers market where they have, tons and tons of plants now, right? And so I've been looking I wanted to get 2 of those big pots of like mixed plants and flowers to put on either side of my front door. And I've been thinking about that for a while, like a couple of years, and I never do it. And I don't do it myself. So I was like, I know a couple of stands do it, make them. So we're walking through and like, none of them really hit me. And then we get to one and we're looking through and I was like, oh, it was a great deal. And so there were 2 out of all of them that I liked, and they actually matched. And my husband and I both liked them, and they
that's great. They usually don't make 2 alike.
I know. Well, that was the thing. So we picked out 2, we go to check out, and I asked the guy if they take cards or just cash. Right. And he says, and he was one of those people with a very, very heavy Southern accent, and it was very garbled, like what he said, and he sort of waves his hand and he goes, well, if you want to pay with cards, you got to go up there. And we're like, where? Like, where? Right. And then the woman that was doing the stand with him says, oh, he means you need to go to the ATM and get cash. And I said, oh, okay. I said, all right, well, and I gave him the plants and I said, all right, hold the plants here, please. And we're just going to go get cash and come back and get to pay for them. And he's like, okay. He could see me go. I mean, he could see the ATM from where. So we go to the ATM. We're gone for less than 5 minutes. We come back and they're gone. And I'm like, where are my plants? And he looks over and he waves at these other two that are sitting there. And I said, no, those aren't the two that I chose. And he goes, oh, he goes, I think I accidentally gave him to somebody else. And I was like, it tried to irritate me. I tried to get irritated by it,
Right.
And it was funny because then it was like, I was like, really? I said, well, we just went over to the ATM and I told you that you could see us. And he was like, yeah, sorry, I gave him to somebody else. And I was like, great. So then we looked at so then, my husband's like, well, let's just look and see if there are any other two. I'm like, we have already picked through all of them. Right. And those were the only two that, matched and there were the colors we wanted, whatever. But we looked again. And then finally I said, no, I'm not just going to do something else to fit this space now. Right. And that's when I was like, oh, well, this is sort of interesting. Right. That didn't keep up with me, or I didn't keep up with.
Right.
And then I was like, well, you know what? There's always other options. So we walked, we walked away, and a couple of stands down, they had some other ones like that I didn't really like, but they had all little plans of the ones that had been in the one that I liked, that, the person that the guy had sold. And I ended up buying those plants. And I was like, you know what, screw it. I have the pots. I can do this stuff. I can just do it myself. Right. And look, we get all the plants that we want to here, and we can pick exactly what colors we want.
Well, and you said you already had the pots?
Yeah.
Oh, that's even more perfect.
Because I was going to take what was in the things that we were going to buy. I was actually going to take it home and repot it into those pots already, because they were bigger than the ones they were in. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to do this. Well, then of course I went on a stupid plant buying spree after that. And I was like, oh, but then we could do this and this. And anyway, it turned out that then we have exactly, because then I went home and I created the pots myself. And ended up being about flush, maybe a little more, but it's exactly what I wanted versus, well, this is what was available, so I took it, right? But then that was like a whole situation of, well, so I wasn't fast enough to keep up with keeping with that pot or those pots that I was going to buy, right? So it's like, okay, so that's gone. How many times, anybody who's watching, right, have we had an opportunity pass us by and then we're like, oh, I should have done that, right? Because right away I go to, oh, well, I should have just sent Scott to the ATM,
right?
And one of us stayed and one of us went, and da da da. And then it's like, you know what? No, it is what it is, right? And then it's like,
it's perfect as it is.
It's perfect as it is, and that's the thing. And it's almost like we're getting hit with these things. Because then right away, right, the judgment starts coming in, like, oh, well, like, why didn't you hear that? Because there was a part of me that thought for a moment one of us should just stay and the other one could go, because it's like right there. And I ignored it, but that's fine. It's fine. Still perfect. Right.
Absolutely.
And so, but then it was like that whole judgment. And then I was like, no, let it go. And then it's like getting to this place. If it was meant for you, you would have it. Exactly. Right. And I know this, Michael.
Right. Well, and it's that, can you stay in that place? Can you consistently stay in that energy of everything's perfect? And if this had been for me, it would have still been there, and everything would have played out appropriately.
Well, and there's always,
or how you perceived it to be appropriate.
Right. And there's always other options. Yes. We are in an infinitely created multiverse. We have an infinite number of options for everything we choose.
Keeps me from regretting things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like, well, it worked out. I mean, it worked out because then I ended up getting some other plants that I hadn't intended on getting, which I really like anyway. And it's all fine, and it's therapy, no matter how you look at it.
Right.
So But the thing is, like, I mean, and I think it was just, but I had that kind of day yesterday, and that was just one of many little things where it was like, I felt like I kept on missing something, right? Like it was just out of my grasp. But then it was like, the faster I would just let go of it, because that's really what happened. I was like, okay, fine. Well, we'll just go find another one, or and then I was like, oh, or we'll just create ourselves. Cause look, there's all the plants right there. I could just buy them here. Right.
Right.
And they're very reasonable. It's the farmer's market, so it's like, okay. But it was like, that whole thing is like, how fast can you turn around and walk away and let go, right? To be
Right.
available for what else is available for you.
Yep.
And it's becoming so instantaneous with the changes that are going on inside of us as much as outside of us. And it's this whole new level of fluidity on how to stay aligned. How do I stay aligned with myself and what's outside of me and what's inside of me?
Yes. I had I had an experience with helping a friend pack up to move. She's totally changing her life, totally changing her life. And so she's moving out of a house that she's been in for 20 some years, and is just it every minute of every day is her letting go of all the energies and stories, and to sit in and literally hold space for that, because I so wanted to jump in and go, well, why are you even thinking about keeping that for 2 seconds? And it's like, no, that's not mine. That's not mine to step in and interfere with what she needs to do to be able to let go of this, whatever it is. And and then she would get to the point, she goes, well, I can't even throw this away. And I was like, oh, but I can. But she had to go through a certain process to be able to get to the place where, okay, I know I need to surrender this. I need to let go of this. Now I'm asking for your help. And so that was easy. And I could see by the time that I left, she was by no means done, not even done with the room, but her box got bigger and she didn't feel so suffocated. She felt like, I got this again. I can do this. I've expanded my ability to see things for what they are and allow it to flow through me and know that it's all perfect. And then, okay, what's next?
Right. 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 And it's like, it is letting go to such, and I think, and I know you're having some physical challenges last night or whatever. And
Yes.
it's like, it was funny, a client that I was working with on Friday, it was same kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, well, we're letting go so quickly. Right. And one of the things that's so important for us energetically is to commit, because it was funny, we were talking about letting go of your body as a message board, right? Letting go of having, because we have our biggest message board is our physical body, and what we manifest in our physical body is exactly what the things we are that we're not looking at, consciously. And I said, so we can actually let go of needing to have the body as a physical message board.
Right.
And
if that means that to be with the messages that are there so that you then can let go of them,
right,
versus stuff them down, deny them, medicate them, supplement them, surgery to remove them, whatever that is,
right,
sit with it, be with it. And, we've talked about that however many weeks back, the value in what's the message here for me, because you can't get rid of the message boards till you get rid of all the messages.
right, right. Or at least acknowledge them. Right.
Exactly.
And so it's funny because my client was like, oh yes, please, totally, whatever. And I said, okay. But when we set ourselves at that vibration, that's a commitment. It is a conscious commitment for us to say, I will look at stuff straight on. I'm not going to avoid it anymore. I said, and it's easy to say, it's not as easy to do because we're not in that habit. Right. So it takes practice. And I said, and I know that, like I said, so here's the thing. I don't have illness. I don't have this kind of stuff. If stuff shows up in my body now, it's because I have been so blatantly ignoring a message or pushing it aside that it's like my expanded self says, okay, well, your commitment, but since you've been ignoring it in every other way, guess what? Now I'm going to push it into the body so that you can't ignore it. Right. So So I'm like, so that's a big, and I said, and we don't realize how deeply that goes. And it's been years of practice, right? For me, for you, for us, whatever. And so when we do that, this was connecting in somehow, and I totally lost that. Oh, the whole change, the rate of change, then that's a bigger, even bigger commitment when we're changing this quickly, right? Because then our body wants to. So if we're, part of our focus is to stay constantly in fluid alignment.
Right. Because your body naturally wants to do that anyway.
Right.
And the more we ignore its attempts to align, the more we say, okay, I'm going to use that as my message board. So it's that constant sensory input that our body's trying to give us for guidance.
Yes.
And staying focused with that, staying focused with being an observation of everything around us, because those are the messages.
Right. Right.
All filtered through that authenticity.
Right. Right. And it was funny because when we went out and did the energy part of the session, when we came back, she goes, oh my God, I saw everything. I saw like what everything represented in my body. And I was like, see what happens.
Right.
We can do that. And it is a message board. And then we can say, okay, so the thing is to see it before it hits that, right? To say, okay, I see it in here in the energy field. It's like I've said to people, like, I haven't gotten like a cold in a really long time or anything like that. But when something passes through my energy field, I can feel it, even though it's not affecting my physical body. Like I can feel it in my energy, even though it's not in my physicality. And it's a challenging thing to experience, to explain, right? Because it's being consciously aware in all that experience, in the physicality.
Right. And a perfect example of that was this morning when I was using the curling iron on my hair. And it's like I passed my finger a little too close to the heat. And I was like, I didn't want to do that. And I don't want to keep that heat in my body in that spot. And so I'm going to let it go. I'm going to, I don't want to continue to experience that. And that's what you're talking about is letting it pass through. And, it was gone as soon as I had that thought to let that heat go out of my energy. And that's where all these message board things within our physical body is we're keeping the message. We're keeping the energy of whatever that is for whatever purpose. It's like, oh, I can't deal with that right now, or that scares me right now, or that hurts me right now, or I'm not worthy of that right now.
Or having the other stuff serves me in some way, right?
Yes. Right.
Attention or sympathy or,
yes,
getting people to do things for you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's attached to those things as well.
And okay, let's bring that all back around to the suffocation. So the more of those we just pile on ourselves, the more our box gets smaller because we have so much baggage.
Right.
You're going to feel suffocated by that.
Right. Yes. And I've been talking about that too with several people on, many of us who have accumulated weight over periods of time and stuff like that. I'm like, and it's funny because that's all part of what happened over 10 years for me. And then, one day I just woke up and it was like, yeah, time to let go of all that. And I was like, what? And I remember us doing the deep dives like that week, that time. And it was like shedding layers and layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of shields and weights and burdens and all that kind of stuff. And that was after that, it was like, yeah, okay, now time to get rid of the physicality of that, right? Which has then made it a whole lot easier to see and release because we do that. We weigh ourselves down. Literally, we weigh ourselves down, right?
Right.
And then when we realize we can let go and we start to let go, it becomes a much more natural state of being in alignment in your physical body.
And then you're more sensitive to when your body tries to slide back into that habit and pick something up. It's like, oh, that's just way harder than I'm interested in
Yeah.
any part of.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Not interested in that anymore. Right. So it's all of these things, and we just sort of digress a little bit, but and not really, because it does have a lot to do. We're moving so quickly on that fluid, needing for that fluid alignment. Now this is really fine tuning our
Yes.
energy. It's really fine tuning our progression, because it's like we've given ourselves these steps of faster and faster and bigger and bigger. And now it's like, okay, now we're going to do it instantaneously, bigly, and continuously.
Right. Well, and we've always been able to do that. We've just believed differently.
Yeah.
So it's a reflection of we're starting to embrace our ability to create that instantaneously. So why would we want to stop that?
Yeah.
Why would we want that to slow down?
Well, what I have found, and so it's funny because at the same time, right? So this is the thing that the mind is like, the ego gets boggled about, is we've been talking about sitting with things instead of changing them, right? But that's the whole conscious creation part of it. It's like, when we do change something, though, what we're coming to realization is the ripple effects of everything else, right? And it's a big one, except the ripple effect it's when we become conscious of it, then it's funny how it seems that it's more suffocating, the ripple effect, because it's like catch up, like it's like the ripples aren't going fast enough.
Right.
Right. And that's what the
Yes, and
suffocating
it's like
feeling is.
it's harder to ride a ripple than a wave.
Yeah. Right. Right. And people go, oh, well, why would I want a tsunami? It's like, well, it clears all the crap out real quick, doesn't it?
Exactly.
But and it's this friction, this inner friction that we have with the little things that we've hidden in the cracks and crevices that have allowed us to claim victimhood to something, so that we don't actually have to step into our authenticity and power. Right.
Right.
And so, there's so much to look at with that. There's so much to say, okay, but the thing is, so in one sense, we're sitting with stuff and not judging it and allowing it to be what it is, right? But when we
Right.
sit that whole, like, in that place of conscious creation, it's like, this is what I would like to create. And then we're saying, okay, there's a step from here to here, from where I am and where I'd like to create, and all those things. If those have any more messages for me that I was to see that I haven't seen yet, let me see them so that I can let them go. That's the sitting part first, right? And our expanded self, though, knows how much we can take of that. And as we get more adept, it goes faster.
And if you think about it, if each one of those things have been something that we've deemed worthy of keeping, holding on to, it's like sitting on Christmas morning with all your presents around you, all the things that you've deemed that you want to give to yourself, and saying, I'm just not going to open these.
Right.
I'm not going to open these. I'm not going to look at them. I'm not going to see what's there for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets crowded, especially as another year rolls around and another Christmas rolls around, and you have a whole nother set and a whole nother set. And it's like, open those presents, see what's there for you. Embrace the present.
Right. Because if you don't, next Christmas, you're just going to regift it to yourself anyway.
Right. And it'll be bigger and heavier, and
take up
more wrapping paper to deal with. Yes.
That's right. And it's and now it seems like something has shifted recently that has made it more exponentially quick, right? So that's the whole feeling of, and so it's like we're testing ourselves of, okay, how quick, when we start to really roll with it, how quick when we allow these changes with ourselves, even if it's taking a little time for the ripples around me to catch up, and it feels heavy, because it feels like it's almost like I feel like I'm dragging a whole bunch of stuff in my wake, right?
Yeah.
Relationships, people, situations, going to the store, like anything can feel that way with any interaction you have. So then it manifests as impatience, right? Impatience,
right?
Anger, irritation,
right?
suppression, feeling
Well,
suppressed.
and you know, at times feeling a little lost because all the things that you orient yourself with have shifted and changed.
Mhm.
And you're really left with just you and the orientation within your authenticity. And it gets a little, you feel a little lost. I
Mhm.
have.
Yeah. So, well, and it's like you can't, because you can't. So, in one level of you, you're committing to that change, right? And saying, I'm ready for it. I'm ready to embrace it. And then we consciously aren't quite sure what we're
Right.
saying, right? Well, and then all this other stuff is a ripple effect around it. And it's almost like this, I can't keep up. I can't keep up. I can't keep up. And it was funny. And it, or it's can't keep up with me. And I want it to go away. I'm done with it, but it's still here. And it's like, well, give it a hot second. Give it a second. Right.
Right.
And it will most likely dissolve on its own. Right. But the key is then to not look over your shoulder and say, oh, do I want to keep this? Like you're
Oh,
talking
right.
about,
Yeah.
the person you're helping this week, right? Do I want to keep this? Do I want to hold on to this or want to let it go? Even that thought of the moment of, do I want to hold on to this? If it is presented to us to let go, then it's to let go.
Right. Right. And it's more not, do I want to keep this or not? It's more, am I ready to let go?
Right.
That's the, and we're misinterpreting the question like keep or save, where it's like, no, you're going to let go of this. The question is, are you ready now?
Right. That's true. That's true. So those are the things to be looking at right now. And when it becomes breathless, really what trips us up, what gives us the energy, what gives us the impatience or the anger or whatever, is that holding on, meaning that there's something that passed by that you wanted to, that your ego wanted to hold on to.
Yes. Right.
Where your expanded self is like, if you're setting creation at this level, then you've just got to let this stuff drop. And that's like what we talk about when we do these sessions, in Trinity and whatever, is holding the vibration where this is our truth. That's what that means, is this
Right.
vibration means this is what I hold in my reality. And anything that doesn't meet that vibration is going to fall away because it can't exist simultaneously.
If it doesn't, that's that feeling of suffocation of I can't be in both these vibrations at the same time.
Yes.
And you get that dissonance,
Yes.
that discord where they can't entrain with each other.
Yes. What do we have to do in order to release it? It's constant awareness, Michael. It's just constant observance and stopping when you feel that, like that, it's like, I think of like you're sitting on a speedway and something passes by and you're like, you want to reach out the window, wait, and you're leaning out the window and almost fall out of the car because you're trying to catch something that was passing by. It's seeing it, and it's almost like this instantaneous resolution, right, to let it go, right? And it's shifting ourselves because we have slowed things down to sit with them, right? And now it's like, but you can sit with something and let it go at the same time. You can sit with it.
Right. And that's an intention right there.
Yes.
To set that intention to where I'm going to look at this as I let it go.
Yes.
Which that's really powerful, is to, and that comes from that, I always have to put in one of these plugs, that comes from being worthy to see it and let it go all at the same time, to trust that I can see it and let it go, and that my guidance will guide me to be able to see it and let it go. And I'm responsible because I create this. So, and I mean, and I forgive myself for holding on to it and not letting it go. I mean, I could go through all 7.
You're almost there. I appreciate the shadow part of that. And then,
that's right. And
that self-love, I can let it go. Yeah.
Right.
Yes. It is a lot of stuff if we stop to think about it, but it's like, it's like we've gotten to graduate school, right? And so, an expanded self says, we don't need the kindergarten stuff anymore. We don't need we don't need elementary school stuff anymore. We're done with that. We got the lessons. We integrated what we needed to. Now we can let it go. There's no need to hold on to every painting, every drawing, every lesson that we did in elementary school.
All the homework papers, all the art projects. We've done that. we've mastered that. So we've incorporated that already into our authenticity.
Yeah.
And we are unnoticing of the things that were of value. So everything else we can just let go.
And we can do it faster. And that doesn't mean that we're not doing it. This is the shift, right? So we had slowed down talking for a long time about sitting with things and looking at them, whatever. That was the point of
Right.
accepting them for what they really are, for seeing them like here, right? Versus pushing it away, right? And accepting them, embracing them as part of that lesson, right? So when we master that, then we don't have to spend a lot of time with it anymore. That's the point. So things feel like they've sped up because now it's like, okay, when we get to that point, okay, I see it, I get it, you know, I'm accepting it, I'm embracing it now, I'm letting it go so that it doesn't need to be dragged forward anymore. Like, and to such a degree, you know, anything physical, a lot of people have stuff coming up, gallstones, kidney stones, things like that. It's part of that speed of letting go. How fast can you let that go?
Yeah. And it's that something, it's a sticking point. Something's keeping me stuck to not allow the flow, because both the kidney stones and the gallstones are all about flow within the body.
Yes. My daughter has the same, one of my daughters have the same thing going on, when she keeps on getting a little stuck.
Right. Well, and
And
that's the same with the feet, you know, moving forward, taking steps.
Yep.
Right. So
it's all this stuff. And it's like, okay, when you have a symptom like that, or something comes up that you can look at, you know, and you say, oh, well, this can be just about letting go and moving forward out of where I was. Then it's just take a moment, you know, sort of center yourself, get to that center, you know, of you, and be like, okay, well, I can let that go now. Like I can let that go and allow. And it's a little scary on sometimes.
well, it when you said that, I could see, you know, you leap and the wings appear,
Yes.
step and the step appears.
Constantly now.
And that's what we're practicing. That's what
And
we're currently mastering.
Yes. And I feel like it was funny because I sort of had that a little bit hit me last week where I was like, oh my God, like I can't even breathe. Like it's been so breathless in terms of changes and things I've pushed myself off a ledge to do right now.
Right.
And I'm just like, wow. And it was like this weekend was, I just need a breath. I just need a breath. And you can do that. You can say, I need a breath. Of course. And then the stuff still flowed, but it was at a toned down level. It was
right.
But this is where we are collectively. And I feel like it's only going to get faster and bigger as we go. Right. So it's a matter of really mastering that. You know, it makes me think of skiing. When you first ski, go down the bunny hill, you know, you take big, wide, you know, arcs back and forth. And then as you get better, you go down, you know, like steeper hills, and you go like in less of an arc and whatever, and you get more masterful at maneuvering around that kind of stuff.
And you go on the black diamond slopes.
That's right.
There's nothing but moguls and pack and loose powder.
Exactly. And yet by the time you do that, typically you're in that place, or you like crash and burn and whatever, and then you get up and you do it again.
Right. Start over.
Just keep going. So it's this balance, this a new level. It seems to be this new level of balance that we're asking of ourselves, which is allowing this change at the speed of thought while fully immersing ourselves in the experience of the change of every element as we change, at the same time as it being that quick. But it's because we're there. We're in that graduate school. We're ready to do that. Right. And it's a matter of allowing ourselves to honor our path and journeys so that we can actually, you know, because whenever we get tripped up, and this is what I keep on telling myself, if I'm feeling irritated, if I'm feeling frustrated, if I'm feeling suffocated, if I start, you know, feeling weepy and something about something, then I know it's something I'm not letting go of, because I've already directed that, you know, like how I would like to create.
Right.
And so it's a matter of me consciously stepping back and saying, okay, I'm honoring and respecting out of self-love, my expanded self. I'm trusting the guidance, to continue going on this. I'm trusting that it was perfect. I'm trusting this, blah, blah, blah. And just moving on without like getting hung up in what happened 5 minutes ago or 5 hours ago or 5 days ago or whatever.
Saying what if?
Yeah. And saying, okay, I see it for what it was. Thank you. Thank you for
And I
showing
think
this.
that
Let's move
I
forward.
think that part of it can come back to we feel overly responsible for things versus being self-responsible.
Right.
And when you're overly responsible, it's like you can't let things go.
Right. Right. Because it's like, how can I manage this? How can I control this?
Yes.
Instead of what is there for me to do right now? What is there for me to do right now? It was funny to talk about that. It was Yasmin says, yeah, right. So another little instance on that, I thought about you because we've been talking about that over responsibility thing lately. So I've been like more conscious of looking at that because I realize we all do it to some degree, right? So it was funny because here's a little story, and then we'll do our session. Is when we went to Hawaii in January and was diving, and the first dive that I did that day, that week, I didn't eat before I went diving, which was a terrible mistake. Not good for the physicality of the body. Ended up after 2 dives, and I had we had a snack on the boat, but it wasn't that good. But after 2 dives, I was shaky. I was nauseous. I had a migraine. I was, I threw up once, and it was weird. I'd never had that happen. And it didn't even hit me until later on, that it was because I didn't eat, because I have just gotten into the habit of not eating until like noon and not thinking about that. And then the next day I dove, I had a full meal, blah, blah, blah. So I came home and I realized that made the huge difference. So I came home, my youngest is coming to Mexico diving with us next month. And she hasn't dove for a while. She had to take a refresher course yesterday. And I said to her, make sure you eat before you go. You heard what happened to me. Diving takes a lot of calories and a lot of energy. So you need to make sure you're fully nourished. And I said it, and I told her, remember what happened? I told you it happened to me in Hawaii. Make sure you eat. So what did she had? She had 2 little granola chunks. That's what she ate. And she got done. So she went to the class. She calls us after the class and says, I don't know, you guys might need to come pick me up because I'm feeling really shaky and nauseous, and I can barely see because I have a headache so bad, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you'll be fine. Talk about the over responsibility thing, right? Because it was the first instinct as a parent, even for an adult child, is
swoop in.
And then it was but I stopped, and it was so funny because it was like this stop of nope. And it was that instantaneous nope. And I said, well, you'll be fine. Pull her aside the road, take a couple deep breaths. Well, she's like, I'll call you back. So she calls back 10 minutes later. She goes, no, really, I'm really nauseous and whatever. And I said, well, what did you eat this morning besides those chunks that I saw you eat? She's like, no. I said, you took food. Did you eat the food that you brought with you? And she goes, no, because I'm nauseous. And I'm like, you're nauseous because you have such low blood sugar right now. You need to eat something, right? So I was like, eat something and then drive home. And it was she's like, you just don't want to come get me. I said, no, I don't want to come get you. I said, because you can do this.
Right.
You're an adult. I told you, I gave you warning. You have the tools. And that's the shedding that we're getting to, this shedding of, and she did. She made it home fine. She felt better. I made her eat an orange and a banana when she came home. She took a nap. And then she ate you wouldn't believe last night. But it's like, that's the whole thing, is when we don't take on those things, right? We do them in an instant for people we care about, for whatever.
Right.
Even if it's an inconvenience to us and whatever, these are the things that we don't let go of. These are the things that are tripping us up and making us, holding us back and screwing up the reality sometimes that we have in that moment. Dogs being hyper.
Yeah, my dogs are really interested in what we're talking about.
So that's how it all ties in, because that trips us up as we're moving forward. it is more important than ever before to let go of that over responsibility.
Well, and the thing I've found with the this whole responsibility thing is that there's two sides to the responsibility, and if you take the over responsibility, you don't give that other person the honor of their journey. And even when it's, you know, when it's pets and when it's plants, and I mean everything.
Yep.
So that's been
Yeah.
part of the letting go for me.
Well, and that's what I think is the biggest thing that is tripping up many of us right now, making us feel suffocated, because we stop on the freeway. It's like we back up to go down this side road just because we're going to do something for someone else, or
Right. And that gets us out of our flow.
yes. Yes. And so it's always to ask, is it for me to do this before we do it? And I asked, is it for me to intervene here? And I got, nope, no, it isn't.
Right.
Because you know what? You won't do it again. That's for sure.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I was like, and it's like, and that's the hardest thing with our kids, with our spouses, right? The people we're closest to is like, oh, you want to go help them? Because, you know, that's what we decide love is, right? Instead of saying, is it for me to do this? Is it for me to intervene? Is it for me to be a part, or is it for me to tend to this person, you know, for this or whatever?
Right. Is this part of my journey, or is this me interfering with their journey?
And distracting myself from my own. But that's our biggest one that we hide from, right?
Right.
Is that, oh, what a
That's
great,
a whole nother call.
no, that's a whole, maybe we'll talk about that next week, that whole distraction thing of how we distract ourselves by helping other people instead of focusing on our journey. So anyway, different topic, different day. So let's do our clearing quick. How about allowing our, well, how about just setting ourselves at that vibration where we're worthy to, you know, like we're worthy to do this. We can trust our expanded self, that we know where we're going in that bigger creation, right? We know we have the guidance in moment to moment, and we listen to it. You know, we allow the lessons to be completed for everything that is presented to us, that is a ripple effect of change when we're changing that conscious, in that conscious creation, right? So that's forgiving, apologizing, accepting, you know, coming to gratitude for all of it and letting it go just as instantaneously.
Right.
Taking self-responsibility without over-responsibility.
Yes. Yes.
For, you know, everything in our reality. And then, you know, again, coming to gratitude for the shadow and how that has helped in that whole, you know, holding us back and causing the contrast and all that kind of stuff. And then doing it all from self-love and knowing that we're worthy of doing that, all in one breath.
Awesome.
Yes. So everybody knows the rote. Let's close our eyes, take a deep breath as we step out of separation back into wholeness, and we set ourselves at the vibration where this is our truth. This is from where we exist, create, and experience. All right. That was actually really cool and surprising and a more challenging thing to explain, but it was like I was seeing myself sitting in the water, probably because I also have diving on the mind right now, but I was sitting in the water and I was watching ripples go out. And then I got this, and then everything stopped. And instead of like, I was sort of, I think I was expecting it to go fast, like faster, like I was seeing things, everything just stopped. And it became like dead clear. And then it was like when you're in the water, how the water becomes really clear. I was like, oh, it's the ripples that actually are like getting smaller. It's like the frequency differences are getting, so they cause more friction.
Right,
So
right.
then when they finally go away, the water becomes crystal clear and you can see the big picture, like you could see everything. And I was like, oh, I was like, oh, that's the opposite of what I was thinking, but nice. And then that felt so peaceful and centering and calm. Yeah.
Yeah, this was something that's obvious to me, but apparently not obvious enough. And it's just allow the nourishment of the process, because it's there to nourish us.
Right.
And the more we hold it back, the more we deny that nourishment.
Yeah.
And I just felt it so, allowing that in, it's like drinking that in was just so, I mean, everything is a nourishment. And by not looking at it, not accepting it, not allowing, we don't create that flow of nourishment.
Mm-hmm.
And that was incredible. Allowing that feeling, that sensation.
Nice. Yeah. Hmm.
So let us know what y'all get when you do this, when you listen.
Yes,
In
absolutely.
the comments. Let us
Even
know.
if it's not live.
Right, absolutely. And once again, like us, subscribe to us, follow us, all those things. Let us know that this is of value to you.
Michael
Because
says felt good.
we do it for you.
Yes, we do. Well, as much as for us. We do it for us and we do it for you.
Well, exactly.
Yes. So we do want to hear, yeah, we definitely want your feedback and participation, and please share, because it is for everyone.
Yeah. If you know somebody who you think could benefit from this, please share.
Yes.
Please share this with them and pass it on.
Yes. All right. Well, we will see you all next week. Thank you for joining us. This is Angela Coulter, and
Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
we'll see you next time on Ascended World. Have a good one.